Hey there, deep divers. You're plugged into the crypto world, so we're diving straight into today's biggest Bitcoin and Ethereum stories. And let me tell you, the ETF scene is really heating up.
Yeah, it's pretty wild what's happening with Bitcoin ETFs right now.
Yeah, break it down for us.
Well, we're seeing U.S. Bitcoin ETFs just like skyrocket past $20 billion in net flows.
It's $20 billion?
Yeah, $20 billion lot.
It's a huge number.
Yeah.
Especially when you compare it to, like, gold ETFs.
Right?
You know, it took them like 5 years to hit that same milestone.
5 years.
This is 10 months.
Wow.
So it's a very different story, and it really goes to show you how much institutional money is really flowing into Bitcoin.
Yeah, so we're talking a massive influx of institutional money. What does this signal about how, like, these big players are viewing Bitcoin now?
It really feels like a shift.
Okay.
You know, we're starting to see traditional finance really recognizing Bitcoin as like a legitimate asset class.
Oh, interesting. Okay. It's not just like the fringe players anymore. As of yesterday, these ETFs were sitting on a whopping $458 million worth of Bitcoin.
Okay, so not just a drop in the bucket anymore.
No, not at all. This is serious money.
But here's the thing. While everyone's seemingly piling into Bitcoin ETFs, the price of Bitcoin itself has been on this downward trend, 217 days to be exact.
Yeah, it's true.
So how do we square those two things?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
On the one hand, you have this incredible surge of institutional investment, which typically signals a very bullish sentiment.
Okay.
But on the other hand, Bitcoin's price just seems stubbornly disconnected from that enthusiasm.
Right.
Almost like it's ignoring all the excitement.
Interesting.
So it really makes you wonder, are these investors onto something that maybe the rest of the market is missing? Or is this a sign that maybe the ETF excitement is a bit premature?
Very interesting. Okay. It'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. But let's shift gears over to Ethereum, because they're making some seriously ambitious moves as well. We're talking about Vitalik Buterin's Surge roadmap.
Yes.
What's the deal with that?
This roadmap is fascinating for a few reasons. Buterin is essentially outlining a future where Ethereum isn't this, kind of fractured network of 34 different blockchains,
Right.
but rather like a single unified ecosystem.
Interesting. So instead of needing to hop between 34 different platforms, each with its own quirks and complexities, imagine if it was as seamless as moving between like tabs on your web browser.
Exactly. That's the dream, right? Like
Yeah.
right now, interacting between Ethereum's mainnet and its various layer 2 networks, it can be
Kind of a nightmare.
very clunky to say the least.
Yeah.
A lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, for sure. So smoother user experience is a big part of this Surge vision.
For sure.
But what about the technical side? What are the key goals there?
Well, they have this big goal of achieving 100,000 transactions per second.
Okay. 100,000 transactions per second.
TPS.
Wow.
To put that in perspective, Visa currently handles something like 1,700 TPS on average.
Okay.
So
significantly less.
yeah, Ethereum reaching that 100,000 TPS mark across its mainnet and layer 2s would just be groundbreaking.
Wow.
Like, it would be a game changer for speed, cost, and overall efficiency.
So we're talking a potential future where Ethereum can handle a massive volume of transactions, almost like a global superhighway for digital value.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but how does all of this impact, well, the everyday user?
Well, this is where the rubber meets the road, right?
All right.
For your average person using Ethereum, this level of scalability could mean like faster transaction speeds, significantly lower transaction fees, and just a much smoother experience overall.
That's huge.
It is.
But it does beg the question, how exactly are they planning on actually achieving this level of performance?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about an astronomical leap in transaction speed.
Absolutely. It's a massive undertaking.
It is.
And there are a number of different scaling solutions being developed.
Correct.
But the specifics are probably a deep dive for another day.
For another day. I like it. Speaking of exciting developments, let's talk about Kraken. They've just dipped their toes into the wrapped Bitcoin pool with their very own kBTC.
Oh, yeah.
What's the deal with wrapped tokens again? We hear that term thrown around a lot.
It's like a passport for your Bitcoin. It lets you take your Bitcoin and use it on other blockchains like Ethereum,
Okay.
which really opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
Yeah.
Especially in the world of DeFi.
Right. So instead of being limited to the Bitcoin blockchain, your Bitcoin can be used for things like lending, borrowing, and trading on other platforms.
Exactly.
It's like taking a vacation from the Bitcoin blockchain and seeing what else is out there.
Yeah, like a whole new playground.
A whole new playground.
Exactly. And up until now, WBTC has been the dominant player in that wrapped Bitcoin space, especially when it comes to DeFi lending.
Right.
But it seems like Kraken wants to kind of challenge that.
And they're not just limiting themselves to one blockchain. Either kBTC will be available on both Ethereum and OP mainnet.
Yeah, they're really trying to cover their bases.
It's like they're putting kBTC on a world tour.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Reaching as many users as possible.
Smart. And they're making it pretty accessible too, which I always appreciate. The minimum deposit to get started with kBTC is only 0.000026 BTC.
Yeah, that's bad.
Which is what, like the price of a couple lattes?
Yeah, something like that.
Not financial advice, by the way.
Of course, of course. But it's definitely a lower barrier to entry than some other investments in the space.
Right.
But it's important to remember that Kraken is really putting a big emphasis on security and transparency with kBTC.
Okay, good.
They're not cutting corners.
Which is always reassuring, especially in the crypto world. So walk us through the security measures. What makes kBTC stand out?
So first and foremost, kBTC is fully backed 1.1 with Bitcoin.
Okay.
That means for every single kBTC in circulation, there's an actual Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
Held in reserve by Kraken Financial.
So it's like having a digital dollar that's backed by an actual physical dollar.
Exactly. You can always trade it in and know that there's something real behind it.
That's huge.
And to take that transparency even further, they're going to make the reserve wallet address public.
Wow, really?
So anyone can see in real time the Bitcoin reserves backing kBTC.
Wow. So no hiding behind smoke and mirrors here.
Nope. Totally transparent.
That's a pretty big deal, especially with all the recent happenings in the wrapped Bitcoin space. It seems like everyone and their cousin is launching their own version these days.
Yeah, it's getting crowded.
What's going on?
Well, I think a lot of it stems from those recent events with BitGo. You know, they're the custodian for WBTC.
Right.
And their partnership with Justin Sun kind of raised some eyebrows and made some people nervous about the security and decentralization of WBTC.
So this is kind of a response to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like Coinbase even launched their own wrapped Bitcoin cBTC shortly after that BitGo news broke.
It's like a wild west of wrapped Bitcoin out there.
Yeah, it's definitely a space to watch. The competition is heating up, and it'll be interesting to see which ones gain the most traction and trust from users.
Right. Okay.
But for now,
Yeah.
let's shift gears a bit.
Okay.
Remember that SEC lawsuit we mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
Well, it seems to be causing some ripples in the Bitcoin liquidity pool.
So liquidity, it's one of those things that sounds kind of boring, but it's actually super important for a healthy market.
Yeah, it's like
Right.
it's the oil that keeps the engine running smoothly.
I like that analogy. And in this case, it seems like the SEC lawsuit against Cumberland might be throwing some sand into that oil.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So for those of us who don't live and breathe market mechanics,
Right.
what's the significance of this lawsuit when it comes to Bitcoin liquidity?
Well, the SEC is alleging that Cumberland was involved in some shady business practices, particularly around wash trading.
Okay.
And because Cumberland is like a major player in the Bitcoin market, their activities or lack thereof can have a big ripple effect on liquidity.
So it's like that game Jenga.
Yeah,
You pull out the wrong block and the whole tower could come crashing down.
exactly.
So what are we seeing in terms of the actual numbers? How has this lawsuit impacted Bitcoin liquidity, especially on Coinbase?
So Kaiko, a crypto market data provider, has been tracking this really closely.
Okay.
And their recent report shows that Coinbase's 2% Bitcoin market depth has taken a significant hit.
Okay.
We're talking a 37% drop.
Wow, 37%.
Yeah. And to understand what that means, imagine you're trying to buy a large amount of Bitcoin on Coinbase.
Okay.
Market depth basically tells you how much Bitcoin is available to buy at a given price.
Okay.
So a smaller market depth means there are fewer Bitcoins up for grabs,
Right.
which can lead to more volatile price swings.
Oh, so if there's less liquidity, it's going to be harder for these big players to buy or sell large amounts of Bitcoin without causing major price disruptions.
Exactly.
It's like trying to turn a cruise ship in a bathtub.
Yeah. It's not going to be pretty.
Okay, so Coinbase, what are they saying about all this?
Well, they're downplaying it, of course.
Right.
Claiming that everything is business as usual.
Okay.
And Cumberland has maintained that they're continuing their operations as normal.
So a little bit of a he said, she said situation.
A little bit, yeah.
Where does that leave us? What's the takeaway for the average crypto enthusiast who's following this story?
I think the big takeaway here is just that regulatory uncertainty can have very real-world consequences.
Right.
Even in the decentralized world of crypto.
Oh, for sure.
This SEC lawsuit has definitely thrown a wrench into the gears.
Yeah.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, for sure.
If liquidity continues to decrease, it could have a real impact on trading activity and potentially even Bitcoin's price in the long run.
Right. It's a good reminder that the crypto space is still evolving, and there are always going to be these twists and turns along the way.
Absolutely.
Well, deep divers, we've covered Bitcoin ETFs going gangbusters, Ethereum's ambitious roadmap, the wild world of wrapped Bitcoin, and the SEC making waves with their lawsuit.
It's never a dull moment.
It's never a dull moment. It's been quite the roller coaster of a deep dive.
It has.
But as always, we want to hear from you. Which headline caught your attention the most? What questions do you still have? Hit us up on social media and let's keep the conversation going.